Welcome to Under the Microscope. I'm your host, Jenny Germano. Thank you guys for joining me today. I am so excited for this next episode. The topic that we're going to be discussing today is hiring smart in cannabis, what operators get wrong and what they get right. So please give a warm welcome to my next guest, Christy Essex and Preston Essex, the founders of Seven Staffing and Employment Solutions. Welcome to the both of you. Thank you so much for coming on here today.
Thank you for having
Thank you
us.
for having us.
Yeah, why don't you guys give a little bit about your background so our listeners can learn about you and what you did before the cannabis industry, and then how long that you've been in business and what you help cannabis operators with. And I'll let you go ahead and start first, Christy.
Okay. Thank you. I have been in staffing and recruitment since 2014 and just in general workforce. I pivoted in the cannabis space in 2019, which is where Seven Staffing came from. And I've worked in all sectors, and pivoting into cannabis I love a challenge. Obviously, the industry with all the compliance and everything that goes along with it, pivoting into cannabis was just a next step for me. And I absolutely love working in the space. As a company, we help staff and recruit in the industry. So we might either do like direct hire roles for someone who is looking for more skilled labor. We also do trial to hire. So if a company is looking for somebody to do a working interview and they want to really get to know that candidate, they have an opportunity there to do so on our trial to hire program. And then we have to do like seasonal project work. So if they're just needing to increase their headcount temporarily to get through some big projects, those type of things. So that's really what Seven specializes in the industry.
I love that. Go ahead, Preston.
Okay, I've been in retail management and warehouse management for 20 plus years. And Chris is very passionate about the industry and the staffing industry and helping employers find people and helping employees find jobs. And she's very passionate about it. And once the cannabis industry was going legal in Missouri, she came up to me. We're married, of course, and she came up and asked me if I could help her out. She's going to need my help to get this going and get it done. And I agreed to it. And she asked me to quit my job. She needed me 100% there. So I had to trust her. And that's a tremendous amount of trust. So
Yeah,
to take that big step. And here we are. It's been a fun ride.
that's amazing. And I feel like we met in 2019. Within that year that you started your business, I met you in Missouri.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was, I think, that first year.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch your journey and to watch your business grow and expand in all these other states. And that's been so exciting. I enjoy watching other people and their businesses thrive and expand. It's always fun to see other businesses, especially smaller businesses, go through their transitions. Let's dive in. Christy, what are some of the biggest staffing challenges that cannabis operators do you think they're facing today?
I'd say the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is retention and turnover. That's a huge one, especially in the more developed and seasoned markets. Um, Stabilizing their workforce, so their headcount in the facility, that's been another big one. I'd say those are the two biggest challenges right now.
All right. Preston, are you seeing any kind of patterns or common pitfalls with how operators are approaching the hiring process?
Yeah, of course, a lot of the HR is very thin, so they're trying to hire as fast as possible. And they're getting over little to no training and putting them out to work. And that's causing a lot of the issues that's going on. It's the same in manufacturing everywhere. It's a struggle to get them in, and you get into a rush and try to put people into a job that and you haven't really gone over much with them
Yeah.
about it. It can get rough, especially with the badge turnaround as well in the cannabis industry.
I want to talk about like turnover and employee retention. And Christy, why do you think turnover is so high in cannabis? Do you think it differs from like restaurants or other industries, or do you think specifically cannabis is more challenging?
A little bit. Turnover in any industry is always a huge topic all the time in workforce, just in general. But um, in the cannabis world, like everybody wants to work in cannabis. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions going in. Like it's hard work and there's production demands that have to be met. There's a high level of custom. I think it's the same in general, but there's also a lot of differences because there's a lot of people either who are coming into cannabis that really want to be there, but they don't quite have all of the qualifications to work in the industry. So that poses a whole nother layer of, there's not a plethora of cannabis trained employees throughout the United States.
That's true because it is really a new industry. Even if you look at places like Colorado or in other mature markets, it still has not been that long. And so I think business owners are still trying to learn, even in these older markets. What does a healthy turnover rate look like for a cannabis operator? How often do you think people are leaving and new people coming in?
Crossing their T's, doing everything right up front when they're hiring candidates. So you're seeing about 15 to 20% with those operators that in the big scheme of things, especially in newer markets, the facilities are, they've got compliance to deal with. They've got product to deal with, all of these layers. And so you're seeing turnover about 50% or higher in a lot of these facilities because it's on the back burner, so to speak, when they're getting the facility up to running to speed. Also, some of the more mature markets, the turnover can be even higher in those facilities because they're recycling a lot of employees. And they're pre-badged, so they might jump ship for 25 cents more an hour, those type of things. Really, 10% is ideal in any organization. 15 to 20, you're okay. But in the 50%, we're seeing quite a bit of that. And I think operators are really starting to take a look at, okay, the turnover's there, what do we do?
Yeah, like 50%, meaning that would be more the revolving door rate. What can they do to not be the revolving door?
They really need to create a proactive environment in hiring and training, onboarding, making sure these employees know the culture that they're coming into, the expectations that they're coming into. Is there future opportunities down the road? Really taking that time to have a transformational onboarding rather than a transactional onboarding.
Yeah,
That makes a huge difference bringing a new employee on.
that was awesome what you just said, the transactional versus formational. And I think too, a lot of times employees do get treated as if this is a transaction and it's not a transformative role or a role that I guess introduces an environment to thrive and grow and learn and better oneself, which those to me, that would be a role that I would want to be in. And when I was working in facilities, if I could not grow at that facility or go any further, I actually left and I would just go to the next one to where I could keep growing and keep learning and keep rising up through the ladder in these facilities. And I think there's other people out there that are hungry like that. And maybe they are leaving those facilities for the same reason. We talked a little bit about the credentialing. So, are there any misconceptions around what roles that need credentialing or fingerprinting right now?
Definitely. It's with employees knowing the process, employers knowing the process sometimes. And sometimes the employee, they're wondering whether or not they're eligible to work in the environment, especially if they have pending marijuana violations. So it's a lot of things in the process that people have misconceptions on, and whether or not they need to get a background, what type of a background, if they can just go and get one. And every state is different, so it can be different things for different people.
Yeah, that's going to be challenging. I would say with the staffing company, because you guys have to understand the credentialing in all the states that you're helping your clients out with, you have to understand that process. What can operators do? Are they not educating the employees? Some
Right.
states, the badge is attached to the actual operator and they can't just take their badge and use it at another operation. I believe that's like that in Maryland, but like in Colorado, they can get a badge and they can work anywhere. And in Missouri, is that the same?
Yes, it's the same in
Yeah.
Missouri.
So I think that's gotta be challenging. In some places, the operators will pay for the badge for the employee, and in some places, the badge is on the employee. It's their responsibility to get badged. So I can see how there's a disconnect. So does the state not offer any kind of resource page for employees?
Actually, you can work closely with the regulating departments in each state. That's helpful. We've done that several times when we had questions. We will reach out pretty much every state. Once we get to regulating department, they've been quite helpful, letting us know what to do, letting us know where to go, even if it's just for fingerprinting, the closest fingerprinting places in certain areas. So it's been great working with the states and asking the questions. If you're out there looking to start a business, you have to get connected with your state.
Yeah.
And you're just in one state. If you're looking to be in multiple states, get connected with the state regulatory departments. They will help you out. And also, you can get a compliance partner. Reach out to a compliance agency and let them know they can help you.
Those are really good things. How should new operators approach hiring when they don't fully understand all the regulatory needs, especially around credentialing?
Like I said, just work closely with the regulating departments and just ask as many questions as possible. They are there to help you and they will help you. We've had tremendous success here in Missouri with ours, and we've reached out to different departments nationwide. And like I said, everyone's been willing to help. And whatever questions they have, they will always tell you that you can call them back, send an email, whatever is needed.
Do you guys find that any states that do not fingerprint employees, or do you feel like every regulatory body, they're doing fingerprints for employees?
Every state don't require the same. However, you are going to have facilities that's going to require that background as well.
Yeah.
The facilities are going to want to know. So everything is state specific, like you said. You brought up earlier, some states you're going to need a badge depending on the badge, what you're going to be doing, manufacturing, cultivation. In some states, if you work in a facility, we have clients where it's one facility, they do everything, and that employee is going to have all the badges. So just because they're working, they might not do everything, but they're going to have all those badges.
Oh,
So
wow.
it can be pricey for some employees to get into the industry.
Like how expensive?
Badges range from anywhere from $80 to $150 per badge.
Okay.
It can get expensive.
And sometimes an employee would have to have multiple badges.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That is pretty wild. That's expensive. They're actually working on a streamlining bill where they're trying to have some deregulation happening in Colorado because we've gotten very overregulated and they're trying to help operators out to lower some of the costs. And one of the items on there is to have the badge for employees, the occupational badge is going to be a lifetime badge. So once they purchase the badge, they will not have to renew it again. You should see it go into the rules and regulations December or January, depending on when they come out. Maybe we'll start to see that take off in other states. Sometimes other states do follow Colorado's lead because that's a lot of money to
Wow.
take out of
It really
somebody's
is.
check.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It'd be good if more states did that process, especially with the programs they're already getting money from these cannabis industries, from taxes and extra taxes. So it'd be great if they let the little guy eat a little bit more.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Hopefully there is that CANRA, which is the Cannabis Regulators Association. And hopefully they're all paying attention and talking to each other and looking at what Colorado's doing. And maybe that might be something that some of these states can start doing for the employees in their state. Because I think that would be pretty wonderful to have a lifetime badge. But obviously, if that employee did something wrong or broke the law or served someone underage, just like if you did at a bar, there's obviously consequences and you could lose that badge and you could lose that lifetime badge. Christy, one of the things I wanted to talk about is, have you seen an increase in seasonal or temporary cannabis staffing needs right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of facilities and operators are really getting to that point where, their production fluctuates and regulation might change. So they've got to change their packaging and then they get backlogged. And I think it's starting to catch on that flexible staffing is like a really, rather than bringing on a full-time employee and taking on all the hiring risk. And then what are you going to do when you slow down? So yeah, we've definitely seen an uptick on the flexible staffing as a good viable option to go through those roller coasters that every operator and facility are facing. And a lot of times full-time employees are being identified out of those flexible staffing options as well. So they're identifying a rock star and keeping them on permanently. Yeah, it's been a good benefit. I think more and more operators are starting to catch on that that's super helpful to their organization as a whole.
What kind of facilities are using staffing right now? Is it dispensaries or transport? Are there like specific license types that are using a staffing company?
Yeah, I would say all of them.
Oh, wow.
Transportation, not as much, just because there's a lot more, like they may use staffing for a direct hire role to fill because it's very specified, very skilled, um, especially like on the security level and all of that. But really like cultivation, manufacturing, and dispensary, they're all understanding that having flexible staffing or having the opportunity to be able to utilize a trial to hire program so they can really get to know the employee and they don't have to filter through 300, 500 resumes to find that perfect candidate.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
but yeah, they're definitely, I'd say every facet of the industry is using it, especially the cultivation. That's a big one.
How does that trial to hire work? Is it like 30 days? Is it 90 days?
Usually it's a specified amount of hours. The average is about 400, but the trial to hire, when you utilize a staffing firm, like it takes the hiring risk off of you, off of the employer.
Yeah.
And it gives you an opportunity not only for the employer to make sure that the employee is a good fit, but also vice versa. The employee can determine that the employer is going to be a good, and it gives them a chance to know the company, understand the expectations, understand the role. We have seen like some employees might be brought in as a training, and then the facility identifies this certain employee might be a rock star over in this other department. We're going to pivot them
Yeah.
over. So it's really good for the employer.
I like to hear that people are still doing that. I don't know if they called it that in the 90s, but I had restaurants where I had to go stage and work in the kitchen all day. And they just wanted to see what my skill set was. I actually had a dispensary, I think it was 2010. So it was prior to us being badged. And I think they were in the process of building the regulatory framework here in Colorado. But I had to come and do a work day and basically do a test run to see if they were going to hire me. Obviously, it looks a little bit different now. So, how do you recommend that operators prepare for all these surges? Should they keep a schedule? I would think people grow specifically probably have a little bit easier because they know their harvest schedule. And Missouri, they don't have outdoor grows, correct?
There's some greenhouses here in
Like outdoor, like in a field.
Well, I'm thinking there, but yeah, most of them are indoor or
Okay.
greenhouses.
Sometimes the sun-grown farms, they just harvest once. They grow it and then they harvest in October and it's one time. And I know for sure they use staffing companies to come in and help them take down that one harvest.
Well, a lot of times, like the indoor cultivation, so they pretty much have their plants on a cycle. So they know when their big needs are going to be all hands on deck when those plants are turning over. So they pretty much have those cycles down to a T. And they're planning for, okay, we're going to have a lot of product at once. We're going to need extra buckers or trimmers at end. I've I feel like most of your state-of-the-art cultivation facilities have that down pretty much to a science, and they're planning for it. But there's always unknowns.
Yeah.
So especially like in a greenhouse, there's going to be a lot more unknowns. For an outdoor grow, there's more unknowns. Um, Holidays are always a big push, and it affects not just the dispensaries, but it affects the manufacturers and the cultivators. I feel like in some of the markets that are more seasoned, they really got that down. But in the newer markets, or the markets that have only been around for a couple of years or just getting started, the operators don't know what they don't know yet. And, if I could speak to them at a time, like I love when I talk to a new operator, just because I already know what they're going to go through. And I love being able to talk to them about that. But yeah, planning for the head count and stuff like that always does tend to be put on the back burner in the newer markets. And then they're in a frantic rush to get people in the door.
That is the truth. And it always seems to be the same, no matter what new market is coming online or what state is coming online. It's all the same as the last market. It might look slightly different, but they still all have the same issues that are coming to the surface when it comes to staffing or employment or that hurry up and wait syndrome or stop go, and just the overwhelm and the craziness and a million things going on and people are running around with their head cut off. It seems to happen almost in every state. I think that's what's great about your company is that you guys have that experience and I have that experience. There's a lot of people out there that have been doing this for a while that can help guide these new operators and say, look, we already can anticipate what's coming or what's happening and what you need to be prepared for. And they really don't need to put themselves through the gauntlet, so to speak, like some of the early operators. It was all uncharted territory. Now, so many states, so many people have gone through this, they can really be supportive to help the operators in the way that you guys are in supporting operators. And it's so interesting that the industry is just not the same whatsoever across the entire United States. It's such a mixed bag, and there's no one state the same, and the experience is different, but yet they all collectively have this kind of shared experience at the same time. Another thing I wanted to talk about was like investing in people. And Preston, what are some ways that operators can invest in their employees, like beyond that salary or that paycheck?
One, the first thing is promote from within. It always helps. It helps morale. When you know you have something to work for, you got something to strive for. You got other things like production bonuses that you can give to employees. If somebody's trimming, you got most people, you want to trim so many pounds a day. So have production bonuses for when they're hitting above their goals, or product discounts for the products, free product every once in a while. Seeing that, giving people a little bit more to help them throughout. So just contests, a little bit extra production bonuses, and it's several things. Whatever you can think of, think outside the box. It doesn't have to be inside the box. Think outside the box and see what you can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I saw something online once where it was an employee working at a grow and he's, oh, great, we got pizza again. And then they got to the point where like, yeah, all they do is just give us pizza. They don't do anything else. And I'm sure there's nothing wrong with getting pizza, but I think at the end of the day, that's what everybody does. Here's some pizza for the staff and they don't do anything else. Christy, how does offering benefits or these creative alternatives that we mentioned, how does it impact retention and like morale?
Yeah. Really, in the production side of things, so the cultivation and the manufacturing, it's really hard work. It's fast paced, it's demanding. And we've seen some facilities that they go so many days with good attendance, they're punctual, that they're giving them a day off. If they're doing a good job and they're on time, have some type of program that even though your organization might not offer health benefits right now, because that is a huge organizational cost. If you're not offering those type of benefits, at least if you could have some type of program where the employee feels like that they're winning, they're able to get a day off, accumulate those, like that's a big thing. production side is extremely hard, and employees, they tend to work 10 times harder when they feel like that they're being appreciated, and really little things like that make a huge difference along the way.
Yeah. And I would say startups probably have, I think, the hardest challenge that are coming into with not a lot of capital or funding on doing these benefits out of the gate. And I say more than anything, everyone should have PTO, which is paid time off. Are you seeing any of these startups getting creative?
Yeah. I mean, that it is a huge cost, especially when there's matching requirements on some of those benefits that are required, but um, really having a resource for these employees to go to. So even though you might not be able to offer the benefits at this point in time, a lot of states have state mandated plans, and having a very organized referral list for these employees where here's some options for you to obtain benefits. Um, and the time off things, those are things that they can implement for production, or they can implement them for an award system or an accumulated system, and really extending those up front to an employee. Life happens, and it's unfortunate where we might see some employees within like their first 30 days and something documentable that is legitimate happens and they've lost their job because of it. Um, Keeping that in mind, that these are still people and they are the ones that are meeting your production. They're the back end, the life end of your company, and just finding ways to combat that. It makes employees like much more engaged with the organization. Like they care, I care. It's a win-win for everyone. But really being a resource for them, have those options laid out for them. And if you are able to start extending some additional benefits on it slowly, make sure that the employees are being updated on that and everybody understands and knows what those benefits are coming into it. But there's a lot of really great state health plans that a lot of employees don't even know that they're potentially eligible.
Yeah, that's some great stuff right there to be a resource. If I'm a small business and I cannot offer that right out of the gate, why not create in your onboarding package, give them the resources saying, hey, the state offers this, or here are some additional benefits. And sometimes too, payroll companies that you're working with. I know there are a lot of different ways to get creative out there around it. And so I think that's a great idea for these operators.
There's some 401k plans that can be set up on an individual basis, and most employees don't even know that they can go out and seek those products.
Yeah.
And they're at a very low cost for the employees. Yeah, definitely the resources are super important, I think.
Providing a resource to where if they wanted to invest in their own 401k, that they could. And nowadays too, a lot of employers will provide a 401k, but they don't put anything into it. I want to talk a little bit too about training and what your take is on how well cannabis companies are onboarding new staff right now, or what are their struggles with onboarding new staff?
Some of it is that they just don't have like internal processes in place bringing on the new employees. Really, I go back to that transformational onboarding versus transactional. So we've actually been on site. They just have it all put together. And I would call that transformational. So the employee comes in, they're actually sitting down with the new teammates that are getting started. It's a very organized, laid out couple hours that they spend with those employees, and they really go over all the expectations of the facility. They know who all of the leadership and the managers are, and what their backgrounds are. They take them on a tour through the facility so they understand every little piece of the facility. They talk about their culture and what's important to them as a company. And having a transformational onboarding versus transactional, meaning you're throwing a link at them to fill out their new hire paperwork or a packet of paper when they walk in. There's a huge difference in turnover right there.
Wow.
You're also seeing they're rushed. The facilities are under high demand, and They've got to get production out. They've got to keep operations going. But we're seeing where you're hurry up and get them out on the floor, get them working, get them at the counter, those type of things. And if they would only take a half a day and really make that employee feel vetted and involved, and it makes a huge difference. We've seen it time and time again. Some of these we've walked in and said in because we've had staff members that are onboarding at the same time with any internal hires with the organization. And we've walked out of there like, wow. And the employees are happy.
And basically, you're throwing the employee handbook at them saying, sign this, and they're literally on the floor the next day. I really like that you explained a little more in depth what a transactional experience feels like versus a more transformative.
Yeah. At a bare minimum, at least going over the expectations. They know who their reporting supervisors are. They know where the break room is and the restroom is. And if you need something, things, but
if you have a problem, here's our process for communicating that issue. Or we have an HR department and here's the contact for HR. If some people don't have HR, but if not, here's the manager. If there's an emergency, what do I do? And so all that information, it's really important to empower your staff with. And I don't know if this is going to be something that you can come up with, but like, I was wondering, like, what are the top 3 things missing from cannabis onboarding today?
I'd say the top things that are missing are setting the expectations up front. That's a big one. Just a job description, but there should be a level of expectations that are there, whether it's performance or if it's attendance. A lot of times those things aren't gone over until things are in the reactive stage. Being proactive with those measures. Any type of challenges that that your facility is going through, if you get in more of a proactive stage with that and set those standards up front, the employee wants it. In most instances, they want to know what's required of them so they can do a good job and understand how can I be an employee here for the long term. So there are instances where there's just employees that want to work short periods of time and they're brought in for a couple months or 10 days or those type of things, but they still need to know the expectation, whether they're going to work there a week or if you plan on keeping them indefinitely, hopefully. But going over the company goals and the future of the organization so the employee feels good about the company that they're working for today and the company that they hope to be working for 6 months down the road. Getting involved in those little details that take 5 minutes to go over with the employee, but it's just really important to discuss those things. I just envision walking into a place of employment and I don't even know who the entire facility manager is or the CEO, or do they have HR, or can I use this break room over this break room? It just provides them a good facing start to the organization. Those details are just like super important. It can really make an effect on turnover in the long run.
Yeah. I think first impressions, they do matter because it's either, is it a green flag or is it a red flag right out of the gate? And if I'm seeing red flags on my first day, they're probably not going to go away. They're probably going to be all over the place.
Being upfront with an employee, if you can't go over a certain portion of it within the first few hours that they start, at least set the expectation that they know that, we're going to go over this today, but tomorrow we're going to, pick up and finish going over that. Just letting them know what to expect is very helpful through it. So.
Yeah, I actually like an onboarding schedule is what I always try to push my clients to do, especially if you're opening for the first time. If you're not new and you're existing, you still can do an onboarding schedule. Would be more of a training schedule that you would give that staff so they know. I really do love an onboarding schedule because you're not only is everyone new and we could be a brand new market and nobody's worked in the cannabis industry. which that happens. A lot of people I help launch have never worked in cannabis. So you have to give them context. You have to give people context. So that's why I like the schedule, like a training schedule or an onboarding schedule. Hey, this week is all going to be all of our software training, or these couple days are all our in-person training, or after we pass our inspections, all of our products coming in this day. We're going to have the staff coming in learning how to barcode, how to set the store up. We're going to start getting everyone responsibly vendor trained. I also want to talk about some common mistakes with operators. So Preston, I'm going to come to you for this one. What are some new operators consistently overlooking when they're building their team?
Sometimes it's just that hidden talent. Like you
Yeah.
said, you just had a group with nobody working the cannabis field. Sometimes the best employee may not have the desired cannabis experience that you want, but you got to dig deep and look in some of those transferable skills that they have. You just can't look at the resume and take it for what it's worth. You have to look into the resume and see what else they have to offer that can be transferable to that cannabis related job that they're doing.
Yeah, I think that is a totally amazing. In fact, I love all brand new people that have no cannabis experience, because I do think a lot of skills translate over so well from other industries, and they don't know what they don't know yet, and there's no baggage,
That's
unfortunately.
correct.
Like, if you get in some of these mature markets, some employees, and the baggage I'm referring to is more or less that they worked at a previous operation that were doing things incorrectly, and they come with bad habits. Not that employees bad or wrong, but they were trained improperly, or they come with those bad habits, or they worked in a negative environment and that's all they know is a negative workspace and not a healthy workspace, and they don't know what it's like to interact in a healthy workforce. And so sometimes you can get that when you hire people with that cannabis experience. You could teach anyone cannabis. What you can't teach are 20, 30 years of skill set that somebody built in
Yeah.
another industry. That, to me, that's the golden ticket right there when it comes to looking for good employees. So have you seen any kind of examples where they're hitting the panic button, and then how they could have avoided that? That's a good one. We're all laughing because we all know that this happens. That's why we're all big smiles on our face right now.
It happens. One, you can have flexible staff. Having flexibility with staffing options. Some people might bring in a weekend shift to help out. Some people might go to a second shift as well. You can just have that option for flexible staffing that can help prevent some of those. Also, just projection for a head count during these different seasons and different periods. If you have your head counts set where you need to be to process so much, you got to have those projections there. Most definitely, we see it. We've had different clients that might go to a weekend shift to help out and it's help them catch up, or might go to a night shift. It's so much easier. Some of these facilities have limited parking, so having that extra shift will help out as well.
Yeah. Sounds to me like just being proactive
Yeah.
in general and being organized and having systems in place really lessens the amount of times you're going to hit the panic button.
Yeah. Yeah. Just being prepared. You have things coming up. 420 is going to move product. Summers, if you're in a vacation area, you're going to bring in a lot more clientele that's going to be buying your product. So you have to be prepared. You just have to be prepared for your seasons.
Yeah. That's really good right there. So, Christy, what role does workforce coaching play in team stability and productivity? I thought this was interesting when we talked about workforce coaching. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's actually a passion of mine. And just I've worked with schools and universities and colleges and do a lot of it day to day in the cannabis industry. But the workforce coaching is on both sides of the fence. So, like with employees that are wanting to get into the industry, I mean, like soft skills, what to wear to an interview, all those things that you think that someone might know. For example, we had an employee that was doing a video interview and they had all of the qualifications for this job and references checked out great, like
Oh, wow.
a superb candidate. The guy wore a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shirt to the interview. That
No
blew the whole thing.
way.
Yeah, it was over after that.
God bless that
Um,
employee.
yeah,
Uh,
it was super
oh, man.
disappointing. Well, the expectations with that HR hiring person is that was unacceptable. And their work environment, wearing that shirt and the role that they were doing may be okay, maybe not, but those soft skills and basic skills that we're talking to these employees about, be prepared, put your best foot forward, shake a hand, dress for success, eye contact. Unfortunately, a lot of our education, it does not include those soft skills anymore. And so
No.
if you have someone that's coming in a packaging role, maybe they're not a big communicator, but they're an excellent packager. They're putting out the product. They might not get that chance to be that employee if they're a little bit nervous or, they don't exactly know what to wear to the interview, those type of things. So that's where the workforce coaching comes in and just talking to them about those basics. And we've seen a lot of employees soar. On the employer side, workforce coaching, like we see both sides of things. We see things on the candidate side. We see things on the employer side. And so we have best of both worlds and are able to talk with these employers about what we're seeing in the market or what the success stories or the challenges that are out there. It applies internally as well with the facility. So you've got a rock star cultivation manager that really knows about the plant. They know the product to put out, but they lack basic managerial skills.
Yeah.
We see that a lot. There's a lot of them that are out there and they really know their stuff in the cannabis industry, but they may not quite understand that managing the staff and managing the team members is a whole nother layer of this world in the cultivation side. We're taking feedback, and if we see any of that, like we're talking to the facility managers or the owners about the managers themselves have to be super engaged as well. And we're like an open book. Like we just see it as we see it, what's happening, and all backed up by we're living this day in and day out. We're seeing other operators struggle here, and we can tell another operator, like,
Yeah.
get your rock star cultivation manager some basic managerial skills, and you're going to see turnover just, reduce immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, just everyday workforce coaching. Love it.
Gosh, you touched on something that I think a lot of people don't talk about. We have these amazing growers out there, the people who love the plant, or they're farmers. It's all about the plant. They're really good at what they do, whether it's making a product or growing the plant. However, not everyone has the skill to be the manager. Not only that, a lot of times, oh, you're the grower. That means you're going to not only be doing the harvesting schedule and the feeding schedules and all these things that go on the grow. Oh, by the way, you have to go into the metric system and you're going to be creating all the packages and doing all the transfers to the dispensaries. And then you're in charge of compliance. Oh, and then you're doing the employee schedule. And so all of a sudden, they're an administrator, right? They're doing these admin duties and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just really good at the plant. So then you have to take that person and give them the additional training because you don't want to let somebody who's an excellent grower go. So I think that's really important what you said. We're going to wrap up here. And the last question, and Preston, please chime in on this one as well. If you could give one piece of advice to a cannabis operator who's struggling to keep a stable team, what would it be? And you guys can both jump in here.
The transformational onboarding versus the transaction. That's my big
Yeah.
one that I always resort to.
How about you,
Well,
Preston?
again, just don't just train your employees, train your managers and your management, because your managers and your management are the ones that's going to keep your team.
Yeah.
You can't just bring somebody in and expect them, okay, they're going to be a manager. All right. What kind of training are they getting? Not just the book training or training for the processes, just training how to deal with people. Some people respond differently to different things. So that's one thing we always learn throughout life, through sports and coaching. Everybody responds differently. So just make sure you bring in a leader that's going to out of everybody.
It's so true. You got to have somebody that's a leader that is going to bring the best out of everyone. And so I really like that. And if there are any employees out there listening, my advice that I want to give is don't wear the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shirt and save it. Look, I want people to be themselves, but when it's an interview, just dress up. I don't know if they're just not teaching this in school anymore. And I don't know if this was like maybe they stopped doing it. Maybe in 2010, they just stopped teaching people to dress up in interviews. If there's no uniform and they just let you wear a t-shirt and jeans, then fine. You get to wear your Teenage Mutant Turtle t-shirt or whatever t-shirt that you're going to wear. So it's just something to think about. And you never know who's going to be interviewing you. It might not be a 21-year-old that's interviewing you. It could be an HR department with some lady in her 50s and 60s. And you're not going to get past her whatsoever, not looking professional. So it's just something to think about for anyone who might be looking to get employment in the industry.
I was always told by my father is dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
I've gone to a warehouse interview myself in a suit. And actually, when I was being interviewed, he thought I was a little overdressed interview. And he's like, you're not going to wear that here. And I'm like, okay. I've always been told dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And actually, one day I want to be sitting in your chair.
Yeah.
That's no such thing as your overdress. No such thing. So just dress for what you want. Everybody got it.
That's good stuff. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys coming on today and being here. And I'm just going to let our listeners know that Under the Microscope podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Radio, and Pandora and Amazon Music. And for those who want to check out my YouTube channel, that is going to be Under the Microscope with Jenny on YouTube. And if you prefer watching videos, go check it out. So thanks again, you guys, for joining me. You did amazing. I really enjoyed having you on today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
We enjoyed being here.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.